Welcome everyone to this week's video. Today we are on Herp Monday number 33 and we have a good and cute one for you today. This little guy is just an interesting, but I maybe want to plug your nose around him. Today we are going to be talking about the common musk turtle. Common musk turtle, or scientific name, Sternotherus odoratus. Again, that is Sternotherus odoratus. Scientific name kind of gives a hint as to what we're going to talk about it. It is part of the family Kinosternidae, which is the mud and musk turtles, and it is native to southeastern Canada and the eastern US, but it will get as far west as central Texas. I have personally caught some of these, as I'm sure many people who have caught turtles in their time have. Now, they're usually found in really shallow water courses. Really shallow, slow current, muddy bottoms. That is really what these guys thrive in. Even though they are almost entirely aquatic, they do sometimes climb to bask on fallen trees. Basking is that when you see turtles out on logs, they're warming themselves up for the day. These will get out there, but usually these stay in the water. They do also leave for reproduction and to they will leave to reproduce and to hibernate as well. And speaking of hibernation, they will either hibernate in mud under logs or muskrat logs. A little interesting back there. They are a very small black or a gray or a brown turtle. I chose this picture because it actually has all three colors. It's got the black head, the gray legs, and that sort of brownish shell. And it's a really high domed shell. Not really kind of flat. It's really got this heft to it. Really tall. That's pretty indicative of well, I wouldn't say that's pretty indicative. That's pretty common among musk turtles. Now, their shell is pretty smooth. It's not heavily ridged like alligator snappers or common snappers, especially. But you know, going back to the size, its shell is 5 to 14 centimeters long, which is about 2 to 5.5 inches. That's a grown adult. So these things are a really small shell. Think about it, less than 6 inches, even your giants 6 inches, maybe just in shell. That's a really small turtle. Now, as far as weight goes, they do average about 318 grams, which is about 0.7 pounds, a little under 3/4 of a pound. Not a very hefty dude. Now, they do have an extremely long neck when they want to stretch it out. And if you saw on this picture, they kind of have short and stubby legs. But that's pretty common. Something you may have noticed from these pictures are those lines down the head. That's really easy to see and very indicative of this species. Those yellow or white lines on the face and neck, they're so striking that you can see these underwater. If the water is clear. Usually, with a muddy bottom, you're not expecting this to be in super clear waters, but if the water is clear and you can physically see this, usually you can pick those lines out before you pick out anything else. As far as tail goes, males do have longer tails than females. That's actually really common. But something interesting about them is that the males also have a spike at the end of the tail. That was news to me. I didn't realize that. It's kind of hard to tell, but if you're looking at this from the top, you can imagine these actually have a really triangular head. Thick at the back, really tapered, kind of this pointed nose. That's real common in turtles that are really aquatic. They use that to reach their head up, breathe from the air, instead of actually having to physically go up like you see red-eared sliders. Hooters go up and they stick their whole head out. These guys are really just going to stick their nostrils out and then pull it back. Now, they do have very small barbels on the chin and neck. Remember, barbels are those fleshy whiskers that like catfish have that are used for sensory. I wasn't entirely sure what they're used for, but just thought I'd throw that in there. Now, something that is interesting about this, you can kind of see it here, but here's a better one. These turtles very, very often have algae just growing on their shells. Slow moving water, warmer waters. These are not speed demons by any means. So these are actually really commonly covered in algae. Helps them probably with their camouflage, if I had to guess. But something interesting about their anatomy, tongues. Their tongues are actually covered in bud-like papillae. So think your taste buds, but much bigger. Those are actually to help them respire underwater. I'm assuming there's a lot of capillaries in them that it helps absorb oxygen from the water. That's just what I'm gonna assume. But they do have these very large bumps on them, comparatively. Speaking about, how they were breathing out, these guys cannot swim very well. These are very, very poor swimmers. These usually are just crawling along the bottom, kind of digging in the mud, and that's why they have those nostrils and that long neck, so they can crawl in the water. And remember, it's shallow water. When they need to take a full breath of air, they can just stick their long neck up, kind of like if we discussed soft-shell turtles doing the same thing, sticking those nostrils up, taking a breath of air, and pulling back down without them actually having to. These guys cannot do it very these are a long-lived species, as most turtles are. There are specimens that are in captivity that have been recorded at over 50 years of age. Well over 50 years, which is very important for something that we're going to talk about. In terms of their diet, they are carnivorous. They do eat some plant material, but they're primarily carnivorous. They're going to eat things like crayfish, small clams, snails, fish, but they have been known to eat carrion before, which is decaying flesh. So, what vultures eat on the side of the road, that is technically carrion. Now, talking about the age and their diet, the reason why I did that before this is these are extremely common in the pet trade. Very, very common in the pet trade. And, in my opinion, they're a very good choice for a pet turtle. Much better than your red-eared sliders, which is the most common turtle species in the world, in my probably a fact, not even an opinion. These are very good pets. They're not overly aggressive. They do have a tendency to bite, but not super hard biters. Relatively easy to take care of. They are long-lived, so you do have to be aware. And this is very often the case when people get like parrots. These are very long-lived animals, so you have to be prepared to take care of this animal over the long term, not 2-3 years. And in terms of diet, reason why I said that, they are actually very easily fed. They take to processed food very easily. The issue is you can't just feed them processed turtle pellets. They need a varied diet, and they do need some UV light to bask. But in terms of their diet, you can't just give them processed pellets. You need to give them like frozen crickets, other things. Give them a little bit of algae pellets for them to eat. Give them a nice varied diet. Now, in terms of their interesting facts, once again, we have 2 interesting facts. The first is their reproduction. So females will lay between 2 and 9 eggs. I have seen x-rays of these things, and those eggs, 2 to 9 eggs, I can't imagine the poor females that have to lay 9 eggs. These are not very small eggs. I think like 3 to 4 takes up good 30 to 40% of the body cavity. These things are massive. But they lay these eggs in a very shallow burrow. But something that's unusual in the musk turtle is that they actually share nesting sites. So when I read this, I liken it to think of sea turtles on the beach. All the females are sort of in the same nesting site, that one beach. And in one case, there was actually 16 nests recorded under one log. Very, very uncommon. Most of the time, turtles, especially in riverine systems, they're very secretive in their nests, and they're going to lay it by themselves. These actually are apparently communal sites. It probably has to do with the fact that there is no parental care. They don't try to hide these very well. So a lot of their eggs do get eaten. They are heavily predated on. So it's probably that sort of safety in numbers in terms of the eggs. Basically, the predators get so full they're not going to eat them all, and a couple survive. But when their hatchlings do come out of the shells, it's really interesting because remember, the adults have this really smooth shell. The hatchlings actually have a really rigid shell. Very odd, very different. It smooths out over time. But you can see how even at a very small age, they have these striking lines down the side of its head, and very striking. So now the final interesting fact that we're going to end on, and probably something that people who have caught this very aware of. They have another common name, and it's called stinkpots. These are also called the stinkpot turtle. The reason why is because they have a defense mechanism. That defense mechanism is that they excrete a smelly substance from a very small gland at the base of their shell. And oh my goodness, this stinks. It smells bad. Very, very bad. They use that to scare away predators and natural enemies. I liken it to, this is the skunk of the turtle world. Cute, which skunks are cute. Sorry. But can get stinky. But thank you guys so much again. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you again. If I don't, please be safe. Have a great day. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you do, I'd really appreciate it. Hope to see you again. Please leave me a comment, something you'd like to see. I read them all, love answering, and I love seeing what y'all say about the videos. Thank you guys so much again. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your loved ones.